Okay, so good evening and welcome to everyone who is joining us via live on Facebook. We are coming to you this evening with a special council event where we are doing the Meet the Candidate night for the upcoming provincial elections. We do have guests from each party that will have around 15 to 20 minutes to provide us with their statement. And really the purpose of this exercise is just to give community members a further opportunity to get to know the candidate and the party's platform and some of their items that they'd like to discuss further, especially in relation to Six Nations. So with that being said, I again want to welcome everybody to this evening's Meet the Candidate night for the upcoming provincial election. Again, we did this with the federal election as well. So we wanted to just give the opportunity again for our community members to get to know the candidate and get to know more about some of their platform. So our first guest this evening that we have is on the line. His name is Harvey Bischoff from the Ontario New Democratic Party. And with that being said, again, welcome Harvey Nyawa for joining us this evening. And I'll pass the floor right over to yourself and we'll begin with your 20 minutes that you have for this evening. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief Hill. I will say I didn't prepare a 20-minute statement thinking the 20 minutes was both a statement and questions, so I'll be in your hands if that's okay.
No problem. So if you want to begin, and then we can go to any Q&As that individuals may have.
That would be great. Thank you. Thanks, Chief Hill, so much for inviting me. Thanks to members of the council and anybody who is watching the live stream. I am sincerely grateful for the opportunity that you've given me to have some time to talk with you and to hear your questions and to provide it the best answers that I can. It was seeing you now again virtually. It was nice to see you at the bread and cheese celebration, where I had, after we had talked once before, we had a virtual meeting, which I really appreciate your time. And I had the chance there at the bread and cheese celebration to talk to some folks in the tents that were there. My background is from education, so talking to folks from the Polytechnic was very interesting for me. Found out some things about programs that I quite enjoyed, and just had the opportunity to talk with various people. That is my background is education. I spent a little over 30 years, first 12 years as a high school teacher, and then I moved into my education union, OSSTF. It was a time where education was under significant attack from a provincial government that was hostile to publicly funded education, was cutting funds, was making things more difficult. And when I looked around to see who was defending the publicly funded education system, it was my union. So I got active, and after 12 years as a classroom teacher, I worked full-time for the union, 5 years in my home local, and then for 14 years on the provincial executive, and that was included 4 years as the president of OSSTF up until last June, when I sort of retired, but really took on this work instead. In that kind of work, we were involved in a lot of issues because education, it's not an island. It doesn't stand alone from all of the issues that swirl around in society. And so you have to engage with all of those if you're going to strengthen the system. And my goal as president of the organization was to advocate for my members, of course, and I certainly got practice doing that. Again, over the last 4 years, advocating really a lot with the public because we were dealing with a hostile provincial government yet again. But in doing that, I also advocated for the system and the supports that it provides students, because I'm a great believer that this education system at its very best, and it's not always at its very best, and it absolutely has issues that it needs to address, but at its very best, it's a great foundation for kids to launch from, to have a chance to pursue their best lives. And so when I was coming to time for me to pass the torch to the next leadership of OSSTF. I realized that the kind of advocacy I did, the kinds of supports that I wanted to provide people, and the situation that we're still in, all added up to me not wanting to simply retire. I wanted to step up and see if I could continue to support folks that need, that can use a government that's on their side, as opposed to one that's taking care of just its buddies. And so that's my goal, and it's why I'm running hard for election. I'm running for the NDP because they represent the values that I've held for a long time. They're certainly the closest to my values, and they have they have a very extensive platform. We have an extensive platform in this election, and one chapter of which is entitled "Honoring the Inherent Rights, Treaties, and Ways of Life of Indigenous People." And I think at a high level, it's about working in real relationships with Indigenous people in Ontario. It's not about government inventing solutions and trying to impose them when those solutions may not solve any problems at all if they're not developed in partnership. But there are things that a provincial government can do to be supportive, to provide resources, to navigate certain things. And I would be, if I'm MPP at the come June 3rd, I'd be really proud to take on that work in partnership and consultation, and to use the skills that I've developed in advocacy to obviously you have very many fine advocates, but if I could work in partnership, if I could amplify that advocacy and be supportive of it, that's something I'd be proud to do. I won't take you through all the details of that chapter of the platform that I mentioned, but I there are certainly some things that I think are highlights. I think what we describe as creating a for Indigenous by Indigenous housing strategy. So again, not government inventing and imposing solutions, but working together to support solutions. I think it's an important part of the platform, that the lack of affordable housing, lack of housing in general, those issues have been significantly widespread, and we need to tackle them. And in this case, we need to tackle them along with Indigenous people. There are other things we talk about: culturally competent healthcare for First Nations people. I gather from talking to the CEO at Brantford General that there's been some work on that already. If we can be supportive of advancing that direction, along with culturally responsive healthcare, mental health care, and other aspects of the healthcare system. There are, we certainly we support the calls to action in the TRC. Not all of those things are provincial jurisdiction, but we can stand shoulder to shoulder in trying to advance those. We support the implementation of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People as well. And perhaps with that, I will put myself in your hands, Chief Hill. I'll be happy to take questions. There are more details in the platform, but any questions folks might have.
Thank you, Harvey, for walking us through your a little bit about your background and yourself, as well as some of the points on the party's platform. I know, again, I'm grateful to have had conversations with you at the Bread and Cheese as well in our former conversation prior to that. As always, our goal here at Six Nations is remaining nonpartisan. However, we feel it's very important, regardless of whoever is elected, that we work with them and that they see and understand Six Nations issues. You touched a little bit on the education piece, so I won't go there. But I also want to just put forward, how would, in terms of our Six Nations, relationship, how do you see that flourishing? Is there, just through some of your, research and work, is there opportunity to improve that on a provincial level? I know we have still many issues that we still deal with currently to this date with the provincial government itself. And how would you look to strengthen that relationship?
Yeah, I mean, I believe there's a real opportunity to strengthen the relationship, and it's it would be natural given this riding, and that I would like to be somebody who is deeply involved in that. I will say there is no question I have much learning to do. I'll also say in my mind, there's no question that it's that I can't that I have to take responsibility for some of that learning. But I certainly have been trying to do that for some time. You think back to my own background and the fact that I didn't learn about things like residential schools in school myself. I think I may have been 40 or something before we really began to learn about that. And there's there's such a hole in our school curriculum. It didn't exist when I was a student. I don't even think it existed when I was beginning my teaching career. But so I've wanted to take on some responsibility for my own learning. Absolutely. I've done that through Indigenous-led webinars that Laurier has put on, for example. I've done some of the reading. I've certainly read the calls to action, and I've read much of that testimony as well. Not all of it yet, but large parts of it, because that to me was the way to understand experiences that I certainly didn't have and learned too late in life, frankly. So being in a position of wanting to learn and wanting to advocate and wanting to be a partner, I think, is part of improving that relationship. I think continuing the work that we do in schools, I don't remember the exact phrasing, but somewhere in the commission report, they said, it was education or schools that got us into this trouble. And it'll be education that helps to get us out. And I would, knowing what I, have some insight into that field, that I could support Indigenous curriculum, mandatory Indigenous curriculum for students who then wouldn't go through the system ignorant like I was. I think that that goes some ways towards changing a culture and changing relationships on a broader scale as well. But overwhelmingly, I put myself in the position of being here to learn and being supportive.
Really appreciate your response, Harvey. I know, again, the whole goal for this evening was to allow the time for yourself to share as much as you wanted to, even further to that. But I will look to see if I know we have Councillor Sherry Lynn on the line. I just wanted to see maybe if she has any questions that she would like to pose. And if not, we will look to our next speaker, but I'll look to Sherry Lynn at this point in time.
Yeah, I guess mine is, how can you help assist Indigenous communities and ours in regards to our culture and heritage within our archaeological findings? Currently, there's a policy or legislation is written where our involvement in development is in later stages. So I guess for meaningful engagements would be in the planning stages to help a more inclusive approach. This would require involvement in stages 1 and 2, because right now we're in stage 3 and 4. So
sorry.
Oh, sorry. Just want to check in to make sure. Sherilyn, I think you went on mute before you were finished, or are you complete?
Yep, that was it. Just because right now the policy and legislation says Indigenous people, communities can't get involved until stage 3 and 4, not in stage 1 and 2.
Okay, thank you.
So I
Thank you, Sherilyn. I'll look to Harvey for a response.
Sure, thanks. I mean, I don't see how delaying the participation in the stages of that sort of archaeological research can be said to be working in partnership. And I don't understand why it's delayed till stage 3 and 4, to be frank. But to be partnership means you start working together from the beginning, because it keeps you from going off, down paths that are ultimately hard to recover from. So certainly something I need to understand better, Sherilyn. I appreciate the question, but in my view, partnership is partnership, and it means working together from the start.
Okay, thank you.
Now, Harvey, thanks for that, Sherilyn. Well, again, Harvey, I do want to say Nyawa for joining us this evening. Again, the whole purpose of this is to allow opportunity for members who are watching live to again get familiarized with each of the candidates and each of the parties and what they're representing and what they want to achieve within that. So I do want to say thank you for joining us, and we will look to our next candidate at this point in time. Just looking to you for any closing remarks that you may have.
Just another thank you. I really do appreciate you setting aside some time to hear from me and ask questions and so forth. And my hope is that following June 3rd, we can work in partnership, and I can be a supportive ally for you at Queen's Park. That is very much my goal.
Okay, well, thank you, Harvey, again for joining us, and all the best.
Thank you.
Have a great evening. Okay, that leads us again for those who are just joining us live now. This is an evening of Meet the Candidate Night up in the upcoming provincial elections. We do have our next guest, I believe, on the line, Ruby Tor from the Ontario Liberal Party. If we can get her into the room. Looks like she's just connecting to audio. Okay, well, good evening. Hi, good evening, Ruby. It's nice to have you join us this evening. Just going to a quick little, house rules. We are giving the opportunity for each candidate to give a little bit of background of themselves, a little bit of their party's background, and some of the priorities that you have within your platform, and as well any issues that are pertaining to Six Nations. And then we'll pose a question or two at the end of your presentation. So with that being said, I want to say Nyawa for joining us and welcome, and I'll pass the floor right over to yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Hi. Good evening. First of all, I would like to thank Chief Mark Hill and also your counselors and people who have joined us by the live stream. I would also like to acknowledge and thank everyone for sharing this land of Haudenosaunee and Six Nations with us. We are very thankful to that and my gratitude towards it. My name is Ruby Tor, and I am excited to be your Liberal candidate for upcoming elections, the upcoming provincial elections actually on June 2nd. I have moved to Brantford with my family, with my husband and 2 children, 30 years back. We opened a small business, which is still running, and I helped my husband running that business for 10 years before I moved to the next level. So I have a degree in science, Bachelor of Science from back home. I'm also a doctor of homeopathic medicines, and I have done another degree in genetology from McMaster University here. When I was sitting at the store, I came across many many people, many Indigenous people, and I was delighted to talk to them. It was a pleasant and very learning experience for me. It was something new, which I learned, and it was very good, pleasant experience. During that time, I also went to McMaster University, and after completing that, I have joined a retirement sector. I'm working as an executive director for the last 21 years. During that time, I sat on many committees, many boards. As a personal interest I have in community, I'm a very dedicated person. I like to know about the needs of the constituents. So I joined Branch United Way, Cancer Society, Heart and Stroke Foundation. So I started from grassroots level and went up to the boards like Board of Health, Board of Retirement Home Regulatory Authority, Board of ORCA, and then recently as a president of Ontario Retirement, recently as a president of CARP, Canadian Association of Retired Persons, Brantford Branch Chapter 17. The reason I brought that up in my debate I'm going to be doing with you is this is what shows my dedication. It shows my commitment. I'm a very good listener, very empathetic listener, and I'm a very much like determined person. So this is, I have a strong voice, and I will take the needs of our constituents to the Queen's Park. This is why I'm standing. This is why I have put my name into the hat. This is my second time. I was also a candidate for 2018. Well, that was a unique election. I'm hoping this time the results will be better, and I will get a chance to represent Brantford Brant and Six Nations into Queen's Park. So going from here, the reason I joined Liberal. The Liberal Party, my values and my belief match with it. And I have helped. When I was at the store, as I mentioned to you 30 years back, I met Jane Stewart, our MP, our past MP, and I did a lot of callings for her. And this is when I learned what the constituents are looking for, what their needs are. It's not that you can just know those things by reading the books or reading the newspapers or listening to the TV. You need to have a feel of it. You need to have a one-on-one interaction, which I did for her campaign. And then I also did that for Dave Levac's campaign as well. So I felt that there is a lot to be done in this community, in Brantford, Brant, and Six Nations. Most I felt the need when pandemic hit us. It was 2 years of very difficult time for all of us. But what I learned during that time is the gaps. I noticed the gaps in our healthcare system. I noticed the gaps in our schooling system, poor ventilation. And what bothered me most was the flip-flop of the government saying this today, changing it to the next day. That affected our businesses. That affected general morale of the people. That affected our children. So this is now the way of running it. So those are the things which brought me forward to come and discuss that and talk about Liberal platform. First of all, once I will become your MPP, my first aim will be to sit with you, to sit with the chief, to sit with your councillors, talk to you, learn about your civilization, hear about your civilization. And then we can work together. As I said, what I heard when I was sitting in the store, I found your heritage is very strong and there's a lot needs to be done. A lot needs to be heard as well. So for the schools, what Liberals are thinking they will be doing, they will be working on the schools. There will be more schools open, and they will have a better school system. There will be equal opportunity for everyone, also for Indigenous people. This is what I liked about that. Now, also what we will promote is having an subject or having about the culture, about the language, which is deprived right now. A lot of Indigenous people, they would like the children to learn their own language. I would, if I'm sending my children, right? So this is where Liberals will hire the seniors from Indigenous community who would take that class, because they will be the best to give that education rather than just open the books and read from there. That is something different. When you have a first-hand experience, and kids from kindergarten to grade 12, they are like a sponge. They absorb things. And that's when we need to tell them about the history of Canada, history of Ontario, history of culture. It's very important for everyone to know the history. That's one thing. And we will be also, we are pledging, and we will with the Six Nations, and we will have truth and reconciliation, which is very important as well. And I know Mr. Trudeau has really gone forward with it, which is very nice. And we, as your MPP, I will be working with all three levels of government. Yes, I'm a liberal, but I like to work with all levels of government. I like to work with all parties if they have a valid and good point. It is not for politicians. It's all about you. It's all about together. It's all about inclusive society. This is where politicians should put focus on, and that's what my aim is, to focus on that. And of course, you perhaps know that Liberals will be giving September 30th as Truth and Reconciliation Stat Holiday. So those are the things we'll be doing for education. Now, I heard from many that the water quality is really poor. I also know that there was a big plan for set up with millions of dollars and all that, but they need pumps to go forward. It's only a certain area, a certain block. This is like Band-Aid. Those are not the solutions. We need to go forward and have drinking, healthy drinking water, pure drinking water available for everyone. There should be no boiling water advisory. We're living in a first world. And this is our fundamental right to have a proper drinking water. It is, it's sacred. It's important for everyone, right? So that's one thing I will have a big focus on, that I'll try my best. And I pledge that I will be, as I said, I'll repeat it again. It's not me, it's us. I will sit with you. I'll sit with your community. I need to learn from you. I need to take advice from you. And then I need to take that voice further, because you will be the right people who will guide me what to do and what needs to be done. So that's another thing I would like to do. I've also, because my background is I'm a doctor from back home. I've noticed, and it has happened once while I was sitting in the hospital. It is not nice. I saw there was somebody who was from Indigenous community. The treatment is different. That happens sometimes from other communities as well. No, we all belong to the same country. We all should be treated equal. There should be equal rights, equal way of treating everybody. That's where I would focus on also. And health is another very important field. I'm an advocate for health, and we need to have a good hospital. We have a hospital, but we need, our community is expanding. It should be all inclusive. Everybody should be able to be getting equal and same treatment. We need to expand. We need to start a new hospital if need be, which will take a long time. I know project is already being started. I know Mr. Dave Levac has initiated it, but it takes a long time. Until then, we need to have a functional, sustainable, good hospital. What I like to do, and I would say that we should do together, there should be anything which is happening, there should be public consultation. There should be town hall meetings. We need to listen to people, because they are the one who will tell us what they need, and then we go further. Environment. We are noticing what's happening. We all know 20 years back, we didn't face this kind of environment, and it has been, it has been neglected, and more so now with the current government than anywhere else. Mr. Ford was not even agreeing to believe that there is a climate change happening. It is happening. See, the result just happened recently. See how many people were out of electricity, how many people might have died even. That's pathetic. We should do things proactively. Why are we waiting for something to happen and then do a work around it? No, my approach will be proactive approach. That's climate change is real, and liberals will, they are They are pledging that by 2030, there will be 50% reduction, and by 2050, there will be net zero. How we do it, there are different steps. There's protocols for that. We'll be planting trees. We have pledged to plant 8 million trees, 100 million a year for 8 years. So that's one. We will bring our the agricultural land, which is being paved, and it's only left 10%, we'll bring to 30% back. That is also very important. Agriculture is very important, right? And we learned that through pandemic. Food is one thing. That was the first fear everybody had. What am I going to do if there is no food? What am I going to eat? So agriculture, how can we ignore that? How can we pave those lands? That's what I don't get. Those dots don't match. I don't get the math, what current government is doing. So that is another thing. I'll be working with liberals, our leaders, to bring that back to us. Another thing, Grand River, that is on my project. It's even on my pamphlet. Rivers, clean water. When we're talking about clean waters, we need to keep our rivers clean, our lakes clean. We need to have wetlands. We need to maintain those things. And what current government has done, there were cuts over there as well. Go figure. So those are the things we need to make sure talking is one, but actually getting into that and actually make it effective is what we need. So there are a lot of things I can talk about many, but I just thought I will give you a chance. I will let the constituents, the indigenous people, bring their ideas, what they see, what they expect from me. When I will become your MPP, and I hope you will vote for me. I'm requesting for that. I'm seeking for that, and you'll see the difference. I walk the talk. I'm a very determined person, and I know what needs to be done to improve and bring this prosperity back to this Brantford brand. Our transport system, our small businesses, there are lots to be done. So I'll open the floor, and I would like to take the questions if someone has to ask me anything. Thank you.
Thank you, Nyawa Ruby, for providing us with your presentation this evening. Again, our goal, again, for those who are joining us just now, this is a Meet the Candidate night for the upcoming provincial elections. So we have each candidate from each party here with one statement being read, which is our next item. But one question that I do want to pose, and I'm trying to pose different questions to each candidate, so nobody's getting all the same question for myself. As you are aware, we have the Mohawk Institute located in the horrific atrocities committed at the residential school systems. I don't even really like calling them schools, as we know, what they did to our children. In fact, what we've now built as the Survivors Secretariat, remaining apolitical, which is now searching the grounds around the Mohawk Institute, a huge undertaking of work. We know it's not going to be done, within the year or two. In fact, it's going to take a number of years to get the full acreage searched. As you're aware, the Liberal federal government, we did receive, the Survivor Secretary received dollars from the federal government, but we've seen a huge decrease, really, from what our original ask was of the provincial government for funding of the Survivor Secretariat to do the necessary work of the search of finding all of our children. What will you do to help increase that funding, and how will you make sure that the Survivor Secretariat is at a priority of this province, and making sure that we're working with all levels of government to bring all of our children home?
It's a very emotional question. It's a very important question as well. I can feel what parents want, what grandparents want. I'm myself a grandparent. I have children. How important for the families to have a closure to it, to bring it a positive. I mean, it's hard, but we have to come up with a closure. So yes, Liberals will increase the funding. They will have independent ministry where for Indigenous people, where they will be dealing strictly with them, not 10 different portfolios together. So there will be a standalone ministry and funding will be increased.
Thank you, Ruby. Again, do appreciate and recognize the sensitivity to that question and the topic in general. But again, it's the reality of what we're faced with, and we're at a point where we need all the truths uncovered in order for us to really truly go down the path of reconciliation.
Yes.
I'm going to now shift to Councillor Sherry Lynn Hill, who also would like to pose a question to yourself. I'll pass the floor to you, Sherry Lynn.
Thank you. I first have a comment and then I'll have the question. The Liberal Win government allowed permits to take water from the Haldeman tract.
Oops, sorry. Sorry, did you get disconnected?
Nope.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Sorry. Yeah, I can. Sorry. Yeah, there was a call coming in that kind of.
Okay. So this is my comment first. The Liberal Win government allowed permits to take water from the Haldeman tract for commercial water bottling companies to commodifying water all while our wells here at Six Nations go dry year round. So that's my comment when you talk about water. My question is, for the Liberal candidate, so under the Win government, there was a cap in trade carbon pricing regime with a carbon auction fund set aside for Indigenous communities. What is the Liberal Party's platform for helping First Nations get climate ready, as by 2030, we have to move away from fossil fuels to heat our homes? Thanks.
Right. First of all, yes, there are a lot of things happened during Win time. And as we all know, there were a lot of pushback or we heard the community out and loud, but a lot of things were happening which were good and bad both. So as I said in my opening statement as well, I am going to be sitting with your council, with your chief, and we will be having a discussion. I will get educated and informed by the council, and this is how we will move forward with the needs. You are right about the water that I've already mentioned, that Liberals are, they will be working on it, and there will be drinkable water available for everyone. And there will be no more water advisory, boiling water advisory. Now, you mentioned about what are we going to be doing about taking the fossil fuel away, and how we're going to be helping that. We will be supplying electricity. There will be electricity, and we are going more with electric and taking the carbon footprints away. And this is, for example, even giving for the transportation, $1 a ride will take 400,000 cars off from the road. That would help. And we will, so there is a whole platform and policies which Liberals will be doing to help with that part. We'll be planting trees as well, 800 million trees. And that would be helping with it too. There'll be funding coming for solar power, solar energy. So there will be no tax on that. There is a lot of things. There are 7 or 8 points in there which would help us to take the carbon footprint out. Also to the businesses, which will be helping with it. There will be incentives. They will be appreciated. They will get some money back, and who are not meeting the target, there will be penalties to them as well. So I hope that helps.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ruby and Sherilyn, for posing that question. Just last question for you, Ruby, and then we'll go to some closing remarks, or rather comments from yourself. Just in terms of, and I know you've mentioned this already, in terms of the relationship with Indigenous peoples. Specifically, Six Nations has the Haldeman Tract, which ultimately runs through about 38 municipalities. We have, with our up-and-coming court case, what will you look to help strengthen the relationship with Six Nations and further understanding and educating Canadians on our up-and-coming litigation court case?
To be honest, I'm not too aware of that. I know there are cases going, and I know there is help required for that. I will be open to listen. Anything which I'm not aware of, I'm a very good listener, and I would like to learn, and there is no ending to learning process. So, and it's not that what I say today that will complete my 4 years with you or longer. We will be sitting many times for different issues. There will be a lot of discussion at different times. And all I can say for everything is that I'm there. I'm there to listen to you guys. I'm there to be your voice. That's why I will be elected, and that's why you will elect me for. And I will support wherever the support is needed. I'm not the person who sit behind the desk. I'm the person who is out and about and listening to people and helping people and working with them. That's more than anything else, working with them.
I appreciate your response and your frank response, rather, in terms of being upfront. So there's much to learn around Six Nations. And again, I do want to thank you for joining us. At this time, I will look to yourself for any closing comments.
I would urge and I would seek for the support. Give me a chance. We have given a chance to PC Party after long Liberal Party, and we heard out and loud what had happened. This is a new Liberals, and we have a very good platform. And I am more focused on Brantford brand. This is where my focus will be. So I am not new to Brantford brand. I know the needs of the Brantford brand. I'm a health advocate. I'm for schools. I'm for seniors. Seniors is my forte. Through COVID, I worked day and night at my facility. I was not sitting at home and giving directions to my staff. I was there firsthand. So they have my back to give them the support which was needed. I lead by an example. So this is where your leader should be. Leaders should be among the constituents, among the people who voted for you, among the people when they're in need, not to just sit behind that desk or not to just be not available. That's not my way of doing it. So I did that, and I saved the residents. Long-term care is another one, which I know there's a need in Six Nations for that too, and for Indigenous people. So that's another one. Definitely we will be opening. We are going away from, we will be closing for-profit long-term care. We will be supporting non-profit long-term care. We will be opening small hubs, and there will be more care given to them, at least minimum 4 hours. So those are the needs. Our seniors would like to stay home with their families. So the caregivers, there will be tax rebate to them, which will come automatically to them every month. It's not that end of the year. So there'll be also for the renovation of the homes to bring them for the seniors to stay at home. So there will be also a rebate on home renovation. There will be more medications will be covered, hearing, your dental, vision, some cancer medications. So a lot of that stuff will be covered. Your needs for like ramps, lifts, those things will be covered. Assistive devices will be covered. I find the platforms is a very comprehensive platform, starting from children of any age, from little children going up to old age. So this is one thing I really liked about Liberals, and it's all costed. That is very important. It's all costed. And Stephen Jaltuga, our leader, what I liked about him, I know he was with the Gwyn government, but that doesn't make him wrong over there. He has been doing throughout the 4 years, town hall meetings with everyone, all of us, anybody could have joined. And I remember, I know that I joined all of them, majority of them at least, and got to listen to people, what they wanted. And then they went with the top priorities, and this is how the platform was formed. So it's an informed platform for us. It's nothing new which came in front of us. And of course, we had counter questions for them. And I remember asking so many times about the costing part of it, and they had the costing, not like Doug Ford. Look at that. I'm not trying to say that he's wrong for him, but I'm trying to let people know that we should spend money where it is most needed. We should not do while Liberal got in the penalty corner, I would use the word earlier, that spent 10 billion on Highway 430 which is going through our agriculture land. And it's for what? It's for 30 seconds of a time which they save on that highway. And also it's taken away so much of our farmland. Those things don't go right with me. So this is where I sit. This is what I would like to say at the closing remark. I would like to sit, and I would definitely do that with all the constituents. I will have open door policy. I'm always a proactive person, and I always had open door policy. I'm one of you. I will work with you. So please support me and give me a chance. Give me a chance and see the difference. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ruby. Again, Yawa, for joining us this evening. Again, the opportunity to come and speak to our council and ourselves and our community to kind of give us a bit about your background and the platform. And again, we really do appreciate you joining us this evening. With that being said, all the best of luck, and we will see you. We'll see you later, and hope you have a great evening.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks to everyone.
Take care.
You too. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Okay, for those just joining in, this is the Meet the Candidate night for the up and coming provincial election. What I will do at this point in time is introduce our next guest, which I believe is they're all prepared and ready to go. Alan Wilson of the Ontario Party. So we'll look to get Alan joined in here. Just give us a few seconds.
Okay. Sorry, hang on, Chief. I just have to set him up, okay?
Okay, no problem. Maybe just really quickly while we're setting that up, I know there was one candidate that was unable to attend with us in person. However, he did send a statement. So maybe what we can do while Tammy is setting up the screen for Alan is I'll shift over to Caitlin, our comms lady on the line, who will be reading the statement from Will Baume of the Progressive Conservative Party of Ontario.
Hello, everybody. As Chief Mark was saying, MPP Wilma Boma will not be participating tonight. The notes from Will Boma, Progressive Conservative candidate, Brantford Brant to Six Nations elected council from May 25th, 2022. I want to thank you for your invitation to share with your council some of the work we have done on behalf of the Indigenous people of Brantford Brant riding. Unfortunately, I could not meet in person this evening, but I have provided these notes to provide more information about some of these issues. Soon after I was elected in 2018, I became aware of the practice of birth alerts. This was a message sent from a child welfare agency to a hospital or birthing centers raising concerns about an about to be born child. In many cases, the child was seized soon after being born and placed into care. This practice disproportionately affected Indigenous women and children. We organized a meeting with children's aid officials from the Six Nations and the Ministry of Women's and Children's Issues. At the meeting, the minister said she would do whatever it took to get rid of them. A few months later, they were gone. A second place we have shown our support is the effort to improve public safety on Indigenous territories. Like everywhere else in this part of Ontario, gangs and guns are serious issues. We have given the Six Nations Police $1.5 million to deal with these problems, which your Police Chief Darren Montour says are threatening the safety of everyone. In addition, we are working to help Six Nations Police and other Indigenous police services upgrade their technology. I was doing a ride-along in a Six Nations police cruiser and noticed that they didn't have the in-car computer terminals that many police services have. I looked into the issue, and now we have set up a funding stream through the Ministry of the Solicitor General so they can apply to get funding to install the computers. Our government is also helping Indigenous people through our support for the Native Horizons Treatment Home on the Mississauga's territory. A fire destroyed part of the center in 2018. In 2021, we teamed up with the federal government and the center to help pay $5.3 million to rebuild the structure. And finally, our government is supporting your search for potential unmarked graves at former residential schools, including the Mohawk Institute. We have committed a total of $20 million across the province and have earmarked $1.3 million as the first step in Ontario's commitment to the local search. The Ministry of Indigenous Affairs will continue to work with your community as you carry on this important work. I want to thank you again for your invitation and apologize that I could not be present. I look forward to continue to work with you in the future.
Okay, thank you, Caitlin, for reading that statement on behalf of Will Bama and the Progressive Conservative Party.
Chief, I got a comment.
Oh, sorry, I hear Councillor Sherry Lynn. Sorry, over to you, Sherry Lynn.
Again, last election, he did a written statement also, and it's too bad he couldn't make it again today. So again, another written statement by him. So I just wanted to say that he did a written statement last election and doing another written statement for Six Nations this election. Thanks.
Thank you, Sherilyn, for your comments as well. Again, that was a statement read on behalf of Will Bama, the Progressive Conservative Party of Ontario, read on behalf of Caitlin. So thank you, Caitlin, for reading that statement, and also to Sherilyn for your comments as well. I'm gonna shift in. It looks like we have our next guest prepared and ready to go. I'll introduce Alan Wilson of the Ontario Party and welcome him this evening. I want to say now, Alan, for joining us this evening. And for those who are just joining us, I'm going to keep saying this. This is our Meet the Candidate night for the upcoming Ontario provincial elections. We're giving opportunity to each party candidate to give us a little bit background of themselves, as well as their party's platform, and how we can further strengthen relationships across the board with Six Nations. Again, we do remain nonpartisan, and we feel as if, regardless of who is elected, we need to work with every levels of government. So with that being said, I'll introduce Alan and welcome Alan this evening to our event. And I'll look to pass the floor right over to yourself, Alan.
Thank you very much. And I want to thank the Six Nations of the Grand River for the opportunity to come here and talk. I'm going to give you my history first, because you'll know more about the person if you know the history and where they've come from. I'm a married man. I've married my wife, Diane, for 52 years. I have 4 boys and 10 grandchildren.
My apologies. Sorry, Alan, if I could just pause you. Councillor Sherry Lynn, if you can go on mute.
Oh, sorry.
No problem. It's okay. The joys of Zoom. Back over to you, Alan.
Okay. I was raised on a tobacco farm in Norfolk County, and there we learned the value of hard work. I'm giving my age away. I used to work with the horses in the tobacco field, and hard work, I found out, does not hurt anybody. A matter of fact, you get great satisfaction from it. And I find out if you work hard in life, you'll do very well. I was married at the age of 20, and I valued my relationship with my wife. A matter of fact, she led me to faith through that marriage, and I cherish my faith very much because it serves me well. I'll give you a background of my history, where I come from. I was a paramedic for 4 years, and I love to work with the people. It was an opportunity to help people that were in great distress. And the job brought me very great job satisfaction. We all need to care for one another, and it caused me to be a more compassionate person. I was a policeman for 29 years. And I really enjoyed police work. I worked half my career with the municipal police department and the other half of my career with the OPP up in the Walkerton area. And there it taught me how to value laws. Laws need to be upheld to have a society that needs to be put under control. Imagine playing a game of lacrosse and you had no rules. It would be a real chaos. And so we knew we do need rules, and they need to be enforced. And government also needs to be aware of, because they draft the rules for our country. So it's very important that people in government listen to the people and draft the proper rules that need to be made. I was also a businessman for 15 years. I owned apartment buildings up in the Walkerton area. And that taught me a great lesson. Everybody needs affordable housing. And even today, it's even more so, because of the price of housing has gone way out of reach for the average person. And our party will strive to seek solutions to bring this cost down. And one of the things that we're planning on doing is stopping the foreign buyers from coming in and buying up these houses on speculation. And it would create more houses for our people in Ontario. And then the last 15 years of my life, I'm a preacher, and I'm presently a preacher today. And I have a church in Simcoe, and that I really appreciate my faith. It serves me well. It gives me a conscience to serve the people in a better way. So I feel with a well-rounded career that I have, it makes me understand the average person, what it's like. And now I've thrown my hat into the ring to be a politician. And I thought my wife would thought I was going crazy. I'm 72 years old. And she says, "Why are you doing that?" And I said, "I just don't like the way the government is going and the path that it's taking us on." And to my surprise, she says, "Well, go for it." And I figured that's the confirmation that allowed me to enter into politics. And so that's why I've entered into politics. And the politics that I see right now, I just don't really appreciate. I believe that there's such an overreach of the present government, the overreach into our school systems and the ideologies that are being taught to our children in school. I believe schools should teach the basics, the reading, writing, math, science, and history, and they've served me very well. But ideologies should be taught at home or taught in the church, but not in schools. And that's one of the things I don't like, the overreach that I see. And I didn't like the overreach. I know the pandemic caused a lot of problems in this land, and it's not the government's fault. But I feel there was extensive overreach. And I think that it caused a lot of businesses to go under or go bankrupt. So those are things that I was concerned about. But what I would like to do is, as a politician, is to place the government back into the people's hands. Some people feel like the government's not listening to them now. I was out on the campaign trail for the last 4 weeks. I talked to well over 1,000 people. And about 85% of the people that I talked to were discouraged with the present government. They were discouraged because they feel the government has not listened to them, and they're looking for change. And I hope that our party is the change that they're looking for. We're a grassroots party, and we believe in family, freedom, and faith. It's so important to have a strong family. A strong family raises strong children, and strong children become good citizens, and good citizens make a great country. We believe in freedoms. We feel that some of our freedoms have been taken away from us, and some of them have still not been restored. And we believe that Canada should be free. Our forefathers, one of the reasons why they went to war was to fight for the freedoms of this country. And we hold dearly to freedoms in our party. And we believe in faith, the faith of everybody. We believe in the culture. Everybody should maintain their culture because it enriches our country. We can learn from one another, learn to get along with one another. So that's basically, in a nutshell, our policy: family, faith, and freedom. And I'll promise you this, and I know it's dangerous ground for a politician to make a promise. It really is. But I will fulfill this promise. If I'm elected, I will work very, very hard for the people in our riding. And I hope that on the 2nd of June, that you will gladly vote for Al Wilson of the Ontario Party. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and I thank you.
Okay, thank you, Nyawa and Alan, again for joining us this evening. We have been giving candidates 1 or 2 questions. And so maybe I can first begin. I know we also have Councillor Wright joining us as well. He may pose questions as well. But just firstly, actually, you know what? I'll go to Councillor Nathan first. Nathan, did you have any questions that you'd like to pose to Alan?
Sure. Thanks for your presentation and your time today, Alan. I do have a question, but as one of my roles on council is chairing our environment task force. And we're tackling a number of environmental issues. And one of them is what we call illicit waste and waste management. And it really boils down to illegal dumping that is occurring. One thing I want to give you a little bit of context about is currently right now, the waste management and the environmental protection laws in Ontario are woefully inadequate to protect First Nations within our communities. The particular issue that is top of mind for our community members is the fact that Ontario has designated a number of sites all across Ontario as being a site filled with waste. And it costs the owners of those properties X number of dollars to properly take care of that. What we're finding is that that particular waste at these protected sites are ending up in our territory. And it's a direct result to a lack of regulatory gaps that currently exist to protect our community from that waste entering in. And it is getting quite volatile, where community members are taking upon themselves now to stop these dump trucks coming in. And just last week, 30 dump trucks sitting at our doorstep in terms of being able to provide that. So one of the things I wanted to, and I am sorry I'm late, is ask all of the candidates this very question is how are you and what plans would you have to ensure environmental safety, especially when it is coming from outside of our territory and it's supposed to be regulated by the government of Ontario. So this is an example of an overreach that actually needs to happen to protect not only Ontarians from that particular waste and contaminants, but protect our citizens as well, because you know the ripple effect afterwards, right?
Yes.
Going forward in sickness. So that's my question.
I know when I was policing around the Walkerton area, and not to the scale that you're talking about, but we'd have people that would ignore the laws of handling waste, and they'd take it upon themselves to dump wherever it was convenient because it was saving them money. And the poor person's farm that was dumped on had to pick up the bill for the cleanup, and it is extremely expensive. The only solution I can see for that is the laws have to be drafted up and enforced. And the enforcement is the important part of that. If people are taking advantage of an area, it has to stop. We stand for clean water, clean air, and clean land. And everybody should have that right. And I would say the solution for that is drafting more stricter laws and follow up with the enforcement and penalize those that fail to obey the law and let them know that this is not tolerated any longer.
Okay, thank you, Alan and Nathan. Just wanted to follow up again, a great question in relation to environmental issues. Alan, just wanted to, for myself, in terms of our relationship, with Six Nations, we have extensive, really issues that need to be further addressed by both levels of government. But now that we're talking provincially, I want to know how you would strengthen the voice of Six Nations and making sure that our issues are heard loud and clear at Queen's Park. How will you do that?
As a representative of you, I would gladly bring your issues to the forefront in government. We believe that everybody needs to be heard, and it's so important to be heard, and then the follow-up through. So many things can be solved by simply sitting down, talking over, going over ideas, and presenting them in a proper way. The only thing I can promise, if we're in there, if you have any concerns, we'll definitely take them to the Parliament and make it known. We want to have a good relationship with the people that we serve. We want to feel that we want to be the party that actually listens to the people that they serve. And that's one thing that we really stand for. We want to be for the people. We're tired of a government that dictates. The people are the government. They really are. And the government works for the people. And what I would say is we will work very hard to make your concerns known. And that's the only promise I can make as such.
Okay, Alan, well, I do appreciate your responses. Again, do appreciate you joining us this evening on this Meet the Candidate night for the upcoming provincial election. With that being said, again, just want to say nyawa again for joining us and all the best of luck next week.
Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you and have a great evening.
Thank you.
Okay, we are going to now shift off to our next candidate, Carly Sordas of the Green Party of Ontario. If we can get Carly into our room. Okay, looks like Carly is joining in now, connecting to the audio. Good evening, Carly.
Hello, hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you for joining us. Just to give you a quick glimpse and background. So what we've been doing is offering about 15-20 minutes to each candidate to give us a little bit about their own background, their personal background, and then as well as their party's platform and how there's relatable issues and ties to Six Nations issues. And so really want to say thank you, Nyawa, for joining us this evening. And with that being said, I'll pass the floor right over to yourself to begin your presentation.
Great, thank you guys so much for having me. My name's Carly Sordas and I'm the Green Party candidate for Brantford Brant. I was born and raised in Brantford. I went to school at Assumption College and I went to University of Waterloo for 4 years for kinesiology. And when I finished school, I said, you know what, I'm done with school. I need to get working. And of course, I missed it and ended up going back to school again for a postgrad diploma in clinical kinesiology. And I completed that up in Thunder Bay. So I've been around a little bit for school and I'm actually on shift right now on my break. I work as a recreation therapist at Norview Lodge. It's a long-term care home in Simcoe. So again, it's truly a pleasure to be here and for you guys to be able to make sure that I was a part of this meeting as well. I ran in the federal election. That was my first chance at politics. I ran for the Green Party and I was a huge sponge on issues that are happening in our community. And I've been on a huge learning curve since that election. And I'm recognizing provincial matters as well in this election and seeing how it relates into federal policies as well, especially in connection with the Indigenous community. So for me, I'm running for the Green Party because I believe we need more respect for people. Again, for the Green Party, it's easier to say that we are always there for the environment. We're focusing on climate action. Our goal is to make sure that we can become carbon neutral by 2045. I know the goal for the Paris Agreement is to reach carbon neutral by 2050, but I believe that we have seen during the pandemic how fast we can mobilize. And I need our government to be able to do this for everything else, for the housing affordability, for clean water, for making our fuel. There's so many issues that need to be addressed right now, and especially implementing truth and reconciliation and making sure your voices are heard at a nation to nation level. I really enjoy what I'm hearing from the community for people relating to these issues and how we can address them. So those are the reasons why I'm running in politics. And again, I'm continuously learning, and being able to have this discussion here tonight is just another learning curve on issues that are so complex and issues that need to continue to be addressed. So whether I'm elected or not, I hope to be elected as the next provincial member of parliament. If not, I'm not really going anywhere anytime soon, because I always want to continue to hold our current MPP who will be elected accountable for their actions, because the last 4 years when they don't continue to show up, it's really hard for even my voice to be heard, let alone everybody else's. So yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Carly, again, for taking the time on your break to join us this evening. We do want to have opportunity for posing of a couple questions. I know as Councillor Nathan Wright, who is the chair of our Environment Committee, this is, I think, right up his alley and potentially right up your alley. So with that being said, maybe I will pass the floor at this time for Councillor Nathan to pose a question to yourself. Yeah.
Thanks, Chief, and thanks for your presentation, Carly. And leadership is about showing up, so just encourage you not to stop and really keep going. The question I have is about the environment, and we do have a task force in Six Nations, newly started, and what we're looking to do is develop that action plan to ensure that not only our support for climate change and climate neutral is happening, but we're also dealing with some of the hard issues on the ground. And the one I want to bring forward for this particular context really speaks to a regulatory gap within the province as it relates to waste management and the handling of waste. So as you're probably aware, all across Ontario, there's these sites that are deemed under a provincial order, and those sites have waste on it. And it does cost a particular property owner quite amount of money to actually properly take care of that waste. Within First Nation communities, we have that regulatory gap as well, where we don't necessarily have the powers within our community to actually deal with this as well. So what we're finding is the waste that is happening at a provincial ordered site outside of our territory is actually starting to end up within our territory. And we are left, fighting and actually standing in front of dump trucks at times. Our community members are actually standing in front of dump trucks at times to prevent them from coming into our territory. And we know that it's not our people's fault. It's the provincial lack of regulations that are allowing these dump trucks to come in and dump this illicit waste within our territories because it's cheaper for them. So we're really looking to have a partner to work with going forward, because we have our plans in place and we have a bylaw in place that needs to be enforced. But we need our partners in the province to actually come up and tighten up those regulatory measures to ensure that those property owners no longer are allowed to just dump their waste within First Nations communities, in particular ours. So just wondering, how we can work together to deal with that particular issue.
Yeah, great question, Nathan. And this is something that I wasn't aware of. And again, like, I'm learning so much. Mark, I'll never forget when you were talking about clean water in the federal election and understanding why you guys don't have clean water. In my head, I said, I thought Justin Trudeau already did this for you. They gave you the infrastructure and you had to pay for half of it, and it only serves 5% of the community, I believe you said. That was a message that really sent home to me. So Nathan, I feel like I'm never going to forget that question. I think we're missing two things. We're really missing the respect for people. To me, that's a disgrace that we are dumping our garbage onto your territory, especially when it's our people that are doing it. It's not your people. So we're losing respect for people at a government level. And one of the Green Party's platform, some of our top 6 priorities, our second is respect for people. We need to respect your land, respect your territory, and make sure that these laws are recognized in Ontario, and that we're not just talking about it, but we're actually acting on it. So I think we need respect for people, and we need more political will. I've worked hard, more in a grassroots way, to try and implement even composting and recycling in Brantford, because Brantford Brant does not have a compost system at the moment. And it's unfortunate that we've had to push, and I understand the fight on that level to make sure that we can have proper waste diversion, to make sure that we aren't just having waste being dumped anywhere. So I really want to push for the green bins, but to make sure that we are held accountable for where our waste goes, and making sure that we do have proper areas for that. I ran for Brantford, that Canada Day is the biggest festival, and that was the one that we tackled first, just in the idea is more people, we can get more education out there, and had the waste bins, recycling, and composting. And one thing that we recognized, even just having recycling bins on for the festival, is that if there's nobody there to monitor it, there's actually more garbage ending up in the recycling bins than there are in the garbage. So there's this huge disconnect as to where people are putting their garbage, whether it's not meaningful or not. If it's just they're not making that connection, there's a huge disconnection as to where our waste is going. And for us to be able to reach that new green economy, and making sure that we are going to be carbon neutral and decarbonize our environment, we need to make sure that we have those actions in place. Green Party has the strongest and boldest plan for climate action, and I'm proud to say that, because I'm seeing other parties starting to implement what the Green Party has been advocating for years already in their platform. However, I really believe we're missing the political will and the severity of the climate crisis as to how this needs to be addressed. Garbage anywhere, especially when it's if garbage is being placed on the ground anywhere, it's really destroying our environment. But again, we're losing that respect for people when we're putting it on your territory.
Thank you, now, Carly, for your response, and also to Councillor Nathan for posing your question. I do want to also have an opportunity to pose a question to you, Carly, and that is as you are aware, we have the Mohawk Institute located in Brantford, and that's been obviously a huge topic, a very sensitive and emotional topic in terms of our children and the unmarked graves that were found last year at the Kamloops. As you may also be aware, we've been advocating and fighting for additional funding from the provincial level, to help support the search and to further help support the work of the Survivor Secretariat, in which that we've built this, have had the opportunity rather to put together this type of really like organization to, survivor-led, trauma-informed, so that it also remains apolitical and that they can continue to do the work. As you also may be aware, we have over 500 acres to search in and around the Mohawk Institute and around the city of Brantford and so forth. And so that we would need the utmost support, as this is not just a year or 2 year long project. This is going to take several years to make sure that we search every inch of the area in efforts to find all of our children and bring them home. What will you do, if elected, to help support the cause of finding all of our children and supporting the work of the Survivor Secretariat, and to see more funding back at a provincial level?
Great question, Mark. It is a touchy topic, and growing up at Assumption College, these are my friends' grandparents. These are my true friends, and it was really heavy to hear that this was happening to my friends, and we didn't have that awareness ahead of time. I recognized how we're assimilating you guys into our culture, but I didn't really recognize the magnitude until this all came to light. And it's unfortunate that it took that long for our government to recognize it, because I understand how far it's been pushed on the back burner on our government, but this is something that you've been fighting for such a long time. So again, we need that political will and the respect for people to be able to make sure that we can search every inch of the Mohawk Institute. I helped donate as well as a community member to the Woodland Culture Center, as well as my grandma, and she had some friends as well that were Indigenous and would mention to me and say she didn't know where her kids went. And it's very upsetting to hear that these are people and these are children that need to be found. And it's disgraceful that our government isn't stepping up to make that funding to make sure that these children are being found. It's part of truth and reconciliation to making sure that you're being heard, and that meaningful consultation to make sure that you are being heard. And we are using our resources to support you and what we need to be doing to find the children. So if I'm elected, I believe we need to work nation to nation to create this relationship. I don't think we have that right now, or to a point where we can truly work together as nation to nation. We shouldn't be telling you what to do. We need to be hearing you out and sitting in the back burner and listening to what needs to be done and what you guys are calling for upon the government. So I really want to make sure that we can step forward and get this done, because there's a lot of trauma, there's a lot of grief, and our community's holding it. And I think it's a privilege that Brantford is next door to Six Nations, and it's our duty and our moral obligation to make sure that all children across Canada are found from these residential schools. At a federal level, it was their duty to do this a long time ago. It was no secret. It's happened. It's not in the past yet, because this was, again, within 2 generations. So it needs to be done, and it needs, I've seen during the pandemic how fast we can mobilize. So again, why aren't we doing this for the children and for your people? So that's something that I'm willing to work with. And again, it's a complex issue that I'm still understanding piece by piece, even the white paper and the whole logistics and how everything came to be as to why. But I think we really need to put a lot more work into it than what we're doing now, especially on our end, not on your end.
I do appreciate your response, and thank you, now Carly, for that. Just in closing, I want to pass the floor back to you if there's any final closing comments.
For me or for Nathan, sorry.
Oh, no, sorry, for yourself.
Okay, yeah, like I mentioned, I'm really passionate to make sure that our government is being held accountable for their actions. We can talk about truth and reconciliation all day, but to me, it means nothing unless those actions are being put into place. There's a list that we need to work through, especially with UNDRIP, and for us to truly have reconciliation, we need to implement UNDRIP and make sure that we understand and we can recognize your land. When I was sign waving last week, it really hit home, where there was a group of 3 ladies that were just walking across saying, like, what are you doing? Like, what are these signs for? I said, have you heard of an election? Have you heard of our government? And she says, I don't want anything to do with your government. I'm like, oh, like, why? And she's like, then tell me how we're going to have our land back. And I was thinking in my head, I'm like, okay, I'm speaking to an Indigenous community now that truly has zero respect for our government, because fair enough, we haven't respected you guys. And so that's where I said to her, I said, the Green Party hasn't been in a majority government. So you're speaking to somebody who isn't a part of that history. We're a part of working for the people, working for the community, and working for the environment, and making sure that you are respected and making sure that we have that nation to nation relationship. You deserve meaningful consultation. It shouldn't be something to fight for. It should be something that has already been done. And also making sure that we recognize that you're self-governed, because again, that's not being recognized at a provincial level, that you are your own territory, and we need to work alongside as a nation to nation relationship to make sure that we can implement. I think truth and reconciliation is just the first step. If we can go through the 94 calls and making sure that the missing and murdered Indigenous women are being addressed, because it is a crisis. And last thing I want to say as well is housing affordability. That affects your community a lot more than our community. So we need to, if we're going to address housing affordability for us, that also needs to make sure that there's Indigenous relations related to housing, to make sure that everybody is benefiting and reaping the profits from our government in housing, especially in the new electric vehicle world, where that mining is on the ring of fire. It's Indigenous territory. And if your land's not respected, to make sure we have a new green economy, then we're just falling into the same government that has really failed you guys over the last however long. So I truly respect your culture, and I appreciate everything that you guys are fighting for. And I'm here to work alongside you and make sure that your voice is being heard at a provincial level.
Okay, well, thank you, Carly, again for joining us this evening. You know, it's a pleasure to have you online and wish you all the best in the upcoming election.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, guys.
Take care and have a great evening.
Bye.
Okay, we have our final candidate that is joining us, should be joining us any second now. So if we could let in Tad Brudzinski of the New Blue. Just while he's connecting here. For those of you who are just joining, this is our last candidate of the Meet the Candidate night this evening for the up and coming provincial election. We're giving this the opportunity for each of the candidates to tell us a little bit more of themselves and their party's platform. And we do have Tad joined with us now. Tad, if you could turn on your screen and audio.
Thank you, Mark. Hello, everybody. I'm Tad
Hello there, good
Brudzinski.
evening. Yes, just really quickly, Tad, just a little bit of quick house rules, about 15, 20 minutes that we've been giving each candidate, you know, just to provide a little bit of a background of yourself, a little bit of the party's background, and how we can look to address further Six Nations issues as well. And so with that being said, I want to welcome you this evening, and I'll pass the floor right over to yourself to begin your presentation. Nyawan.
Thank you, Mark. Yes, welcome, everybody. Thank you for that opportunity to speak to you. My name is Tad Brudzinski. I live in Mount Pleasant since last fall. We moved from Hamilton to this area, and I'm running as with New Blue Party, which is a new party, but we're the only ones that stand for personal freedom, like basically no more lockdowns, no mandates of any kind. And we're representing people that were let go for various reasons from their jobs. And basically we represent the people, the students that couldn't, you know, like take exams because some kind of a vaccination passport was required. So this is not the Canada we envision. So that's why, you know, and the party was basically set up because a few of the people from PC party got kicked off because they were voting against the party line. So we started a new party. Jim Carahalios and Belinda Carahalios, who is sitting at Queen's Park at present time. So that's the I don't know which, perhaps you have any questions, but I don't know the format. Am I going to take questions or?
Yeah, so we actually we wanted to still first give you opportunity to talk a little bit more on your platforms, but if there's anything else that you would like to add, there's we probably will be only posing maybe one question this round,
Okay.
just given the time. Again, we're just looking to have some floor time for yourself, and then we'll look to question and any closing comments.
Yeah, our platform is a simple one. We don't promise anything that we wouldn't deliver. So basically, we'll fight all the COVID mandates, and we're gonna do restitution for anyone harmed by emergency measures applied to governments, both provincial and federal. We'd like to renew political accountability. Basically, we'll ban lobbyists from running our province. And like at the present time, Doug Ford is hiring lobbyists to put them in different jobs, and they basically run our province, but it's not for the benefit of Ontarians. It's just somebody else's benefit. We don't know whose, but definitely it's going against the people. So, and we want to defund the established media and promote a free press. We're against the free license that was granted by the Accord to Toronto Star to run online casino. I think it's a competition with Six Nations. So anyway, it's worth like $500 million, and that the newspaper shouldn't be involved in that. And we don't want the, and like all the $600 million that was granted to various newspapers to basically let them survive and let them write like praise the government. We don't think it's anything to do, that's anything to do with democracy. I'd like to grow Ontario economy at least 5% annually. We'd like to reduce the electricity rates and take down the wind turbines because it's too expensive to have them running, and basically reduce the burdens like regulations that strangle the business, small business in particular. We want to provide the tax relief 3% on HST, reduce it to 10%, and like to reform education. If somebody wants to pull their children out of school because they don't want to hear, they want them to be taught about some abstract Marxist ideology like critical race theory and other nonsense. So maybe they want to put them in private schools or homeschool them, then we would give them credit. So there is no financial burden to do so. And we'd like to restore dignity and transparency in the healthcare. We want people to be treated for COVID right away without waiting and being taken to hospital and being hooked up to some machines. But there is other avenues, and it should be basically tackled in a way that it's most efficient. So, and we would go and rehire the healthcare workers that were let go for non-compliant with the mandate. So it's basically, this is our blueprint. We don't want to say we're gonna do this and that. We don't want to make too many promises, but basically we're the Freedom Party. Personally, I went to Ottawa when I was let go from my home-based job because I didn't take the vaccine. So I joined the truckers convoy, and I have my medical reasons for not taking the vaccine, and it's not doesn't have to do anything with healthcare, or I was working 100% from home and I was still let go from that job. So we don't like the situation like it is, and there's people that think like us, and basically we didn't know there were that many people, but when I go canvassing, there is a good percentage of people that is basically giving us support and sharing our views. We are being skipped in a number of debates, but I'd like to thank you that I'm included in this one. I remember even when I was invited to Rogers Building in Brantford, I had to fill out some questionnaire, and I did. And then I brought the test kits with me to be tested for COVID. And I had one on me, and I wasn't allowed inside because it had to be done by some healthcare professional and recorded, and had to be a paperwork, basically like some kind of a passport to Elton, just to enter the Rogers Building, and and I had COVID before, and I have the medication for it. It works very well, but nobody was interested in any medication because there was no money to be made in that, and the huge money was being made on vaccines. And like it shouldn't be like that in a free country. And we want freedom, and we need to do something. And like we're the only party that it's going against the establishment and having 124 candidates in all the ridings in Ontario. So that's a big change, and that the demand is there when we talk to people. We're happy to learn that such a party exists, and they give us a support. So that's briefly.
Okay, thank you, Now, Tad, again for joining us this evening and walking us through a little bit about yourself and some of your party's platform and so forth. I will look to Councillor Nathan Wright, who's been posing a question since he's been online, who chairs our Environment Task Force. So I will, at this point in time, look to Councillor Nathan to pose a question to yourself. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief, and thanks, Tad, for your time today. The question is related to regulatory gaps that currently exist in Ontario, and I'm not sure if you're aware, but currently right now, waste and waste management is regulated by the government of Ontario, and there are a number of sites all across Ontario that are under what's called a provincial order, and that provincial order deems that particular property as waste and soil that's very, very contaminated, and humans ought not to be around that particular waste. We also know that property owners, it costs them exorbitant amounts of dollars to properly dispose of that waste. What we're finding, and this is at least 10, 15 years in the making, is that particular waste from those sites that are under provincial order are ending up in our First Nation community. And they're coming into our community by the dump truckloads. As recently as last week, our community members were out stopping about 20 dump trucks fermenting the territory from soil that we had no idea where it was coming from. So what we are asking is we do need a provincial partner to work with us on this particular issue. It's not our waste, it's your waste. And quite frankly, we're just sick and tired of seeing your waste in our communities. So, how can you work with us if elected to ensure that those regulatory gaps are closed, that we have the capacity to deal with the waste that we have been dumped here existingly, and from a lack of a better term, and if I can just cut to the chase, we don't want to see your waste in our backyard anymore. It stinks, it smells, and quite frankly, it has to stop. So how can you work with us going forward to ensure, if elected as in government, how can you work with us to ensure that stops happening?
I think we need to thank you for bringing this up. I wasn't aware of the issue. I found it appalling. I know that there was a similar issue of the entire city of Vancouver dumping their waste straight to the ocean, and it was just recently the water treatment plant was built. So I know there is an issue. I used to run in 2007 in provincial elections, and somebody brought a similar topic. Actually, I visited a dump. I used to live at Newmarket at that time, and I was talking to the dump manager, and he said, "Oh, you think?" We see all these trucks going to Detroit and somewhere to Wisconsin or Michigan and paying some municipalities for taking our garbage. And he said, "Oh yeah, but this is just like furniture and stuff that it really doesn't matter. But the toxins actually being dumped here in Ontario, and they're coming on trucks from the United States. So the issue is perhaps even bigger than what we are seeing, like you're seeing probably a part of it. So something definitely needs to be done, because toxic waste or any waste that it's we don't know the origin of it needs to be dealt with properly. I know there is some machinery, but it's expensive, that it's like a huge tube and it slowly rotates, kind of like the cement trucks, but it's way bigger, and it's somehow the bacteria, it's revitalizing that soil and for an extended amount of time, and that soil, it's not toxic anymore. But I'm not a chemist, so I can't tell you that much more, but I believe there are solutions, and I think because they cost money, but are not being implemented. So we need to stand together, and as you are doing, like bring up that issue, and just don't let any trucks with unknown soil come onto your territory. And there has to be awareness about that, and I guess some institution needs to be called and dealt with properly. The funds for it should be assigned. I'm not a kind of a manager. I'm just a computer analyst. So, but what I can tell you is that something like that, it should be given priority and looked into and stopped. And then, I know there was a president of Philippines, and he sent some garbage from Canada back to us, because he said, as you are saying, we don't want your garbage, right? So yeah, it's I'm sure that it requires attention, and there should be some task force called for that purpose and dealt with. In a matter of like running a business, like Donald Trump, he was running the country like a business, and he was turning many things around for the better. So I think Ontario should be run as a business as well, and business being like not only monetary, but like well-being of all the citizens and Ontarians, right? It's just not many, it's only like, less than 20 million of us, right? So, and it's a huge land. So I'm sure there's some solutions, viable solutions could be introduced. But, I know there's this issue of clean water, and like even, like people taking some antidepressants, and then once they process that, it goes into the water and affects the environment in the ways that we don't expect, like frogs, and I think they're only female because of that. So there is many challenges, and it's not only industrial waste, but it's generally the a lot of medical waste as well.
Okay, well, thank you, Tad, for your response to Councillor Nathan's question. I too would like to pose a quick question just before we go to any closing comments that you may have. As you may be aware, Six Nations is the largest First Nation in this country. We also have the Haldimand Tract, which runs through roughly about 38 municipalities within this province. How will you work with us to bring our voices of the Haldimand Tract and making sure we have an upcoming litigation date, a court date that we have for our the accounting of our land that is expected in 2023 to be started trial. And so my question to you is, if elected, how will you make sure Six Nations voice is heard and respected during that process?
I think it should be representatives from Six Nations invited to the meetings where the decisions being made that affect these communities. So it shouldn't be done, in a clandestine manner. it should be done openly and not without the input of all the parties involved. So I think it's only with the participation of the representatives and that decisions could be made that wouldn't harm anyone or take into interest all the parties involved. So I think it's crucial to make sure that the representatives are being invited and elected. Sure. Yeah. So that will be my position and on that.
Okay, thank you, Tad, again for your responses and as well for joining us this evening. Just passing it back over to you as I did for the other candidates, looking for any closing comments from
For
yourself.
me? Yes, yeah, so appreciate the opportunity to meet you and speak with you, and you know, like I wish you all the best. You know, like with dealing with the government, especially on the provincial level. You know, like we need to stand up for ourselves and demand change. And that's what we've been doing in the New Blue Party. And, you know, we've been doing that on a smaller scale. We have a platform, but the platform doesn't address, of course, all the issues that we've been like facing in Ontario, but we need to start with something and then work with any other issues that come in our way, you know, like one at a time. So thank you very much for invitation again.
Okay, well, thank you again, Tad, for joining us this evening. Again, that's Tad from the New Blue Party, and I hope you have a great evening. Nyawa for joining us.
Thank you. Good night.
Have a great night. Okay, that was our final candidate for this evening. For those of you who are watching online, would like to say Nyawa and thank you for joining us. That was, again, this night was our purpose for this evening was to have an information session and allow those who are interested in casting a vote in the upcoming provincial election on June 2nd to get to know the candidates from each party a little bit better and their platforms and some of the issues and things and solutions rather that they'd like to address. And so we had the opportunity. So with that being said, I want to say Nyawa, thank you for joining us this evening, and I hope you all have a great night. Take care.